reports from committees, Prime Minister's questions.
Whip, I've got some correspondence from you. Do I take it that the opposition is no longer interested in prime ministerial questions today?
I seek clarification first.
No. Are you allowing for prime ministerial questions today or not?
Yes.
Okay, because the questions will roll over, approved and roll over from Monday to allow the prime minister to answer. But I have given the clarification. That's by asking. Member for Oropuch East.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Could the Prime Minister indicate the key outcomes of his recent energy-related travels to Europe and North America?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I must begin by apologizing for my absence last sitting when I was out of the island and delayed and wasn't able to get back here in time to be of use to the House. So please, Madam Speaker, accept, and members of the House, accept my apologies. Having said that, Madam Speaker, with respect to the question, I simply want to state to my colleague from Oropuch East and the national community that the answer to that question was offered voluntarily by way of a comprehensive statement to the Parliament by the minister responsible, and the answer is written in the Hansard.
Supplemental member for Oropuch East.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Just bearing in mind, Prime Minister, these are the questions roll over to today from Monday because of the then absence of the Prime Minister on that occasion. Prime Minister, would you care to add, therefore, and notwithstanding the statement by the Minister, could you indicate the composition of this traveling party, not only the ministers, but the technical, legal support team that accompanied you, whether any permanent secretary or deputy permanent secretary accompanied you that would keep records for the public service on these important matters discussed and agreed upon?
I will not allow that as a supplemental question arising out of the question. Member for Oropuch East.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, could the Prime Minister update the Parliament on the number of Venezuelan migrants so far registered?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, as at 10:27 p.m. last night, Thursday, 13th June, the registration process registered 13,933 Venezuelans.
Supplemental member for Oropuch East.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, in light of clearly situation of confusion among migrants as to timing and as to numbers, given the crowds we have seen in the social media and in the press, could you confirm whether or not at 5 p.m. today will be the end of this registration process?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the only confusion that I know about is the confusion that those who are after confusion are referring to. There's absolutely no confusion in the process, Madam Speaker. As a matter of fact, the process has gone relatively straightforward and relatively smoothly and has allowed me to report to you as I have just done. Madam Speaker, in very clear terms, the government has outlined its position and the position of the people of Trinidad and Tobago in providing this window, this 2-week window, where persons who have come to Trinidad and Tobago from Venezuela are able to register and get some relief for a period of 1 year. The period ends today. I do not know at what time, but Madam Speaker, the Minister of National Security and those involved, we are going to be as humane as possible. But at the end of the day, whatever time it ends tonight, that is the end of the registration process. And Madam Speaker, the way it will operate is that those persons who are in the compound, in the vicinity, in the line, those will be the persons at the end of today. Even if the registration process for those individuals is not complete, they will be identified by way of a dated number, which will allow the process to be completed probably tomorrow or Sunday. However, those persons who are at the end of the line today, that is the end of the process of the 2-week registration. It is supposed to end at 5 o'clock today, Madam Speaker. All persons who are there will be identified and acknowledged and be registered in this exercise. After that, Madam Speaker, the normal immigration process
Your time
will
is spent.
apply.
Naparima.
Before to Princess Tom.
Member for Puchis.
My question was answered.
Member for Point of Pear.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, I just want to seek a little clarification. You said at the end of the day, whoever is identified will be registered, whether tomorrow or whatever. Is those individuals who are on the pavement would be considered, or would the individuals who are in the actual building facility would be considered as being part of that registration process?
Prime Minister.
Contrary to what is being put out by those who want confusion, Madam Speaker, we have orderly lines there, and it will be easy to identify at the end of the day who is at the end of the line, who is there to be registered, and such persons, all such persons who have turned up there and be a part of that line, as at 5 o'clock, if you are there to be registered, you will be acknowledged and identified, and the process will be completed for you. If you are not there at that time, then the process ends and you're not there. And after that, the normal immigration laws will apply. And I don't know what is so difficult in that to understand. And it's only a misrepresentation of that could create any aspect of confusion in any person's mind, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental member for Princess Town.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister. Prime Minister, in light of reports that the website used to register these Venezuelans has crashed as of last night into this morning, can you indicate how or do you see how it will impact on the process in terms of the operations going forward?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, none whatsoever. The online process was only a part of the registration process, and to the extent that you were not able to register online, there are other options available, Madam Speaker.
Member for Caroni East.
Honourable Prime Minister, has your government considered any policy to determine what will happen to the migrants subsequent to this one-year amnesty?
I will not allow that as a supplemental. Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the Prime Minister inform this House of the cost of the rentals for the Queen's Park Oval, Port of Spain, Achievers Banquet Hall, San Fernando, and Caroline Building in Scarborough, Tobago for the registration of the Venezuelan migrant?
Out of order. Member for Princess Town.
No, Madam.
Member for Naparima.
Speaker, to the Prime Minister, given that over the past 6 months, Heritage Petroleum Company Limited has lost some 20 million to thieves and saboteurs and spent 5 million to replace stolen or damaged equipment, would the Prime Minister advise of the steps taken to secure taxpayers' interests in the property of the former Petrotrin Oil Company?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, Heritage Company, like any other company, has been, in this situation, has been upgrading and improving its security system so as to ameliorate, prevent, or end such wanton misconduct on the part of persons who would harm the company. Madam Speaker, to effect that, where it is feasible, Heritage has been using improved fencing and the installation of CCTV cameras, and they maintain a security patrol system backed up by the national security system of the police with some assistance from the Defence Force.
Member for Naparima, supplemental.
Could the Prime Minister state why, given that the Estate Police Association on the 28th November 2018 warned the government through the Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Board that there would be massive theft and loss of assets following the termination of estate police officers. Could the Prime Minister indicate why those warnings were not heeded?
Prime Minister.
Speaker, I'm not aware of any warnings. What I'm aware of is that that group was offered the first opportunity to be the body responsible to secure the company's assets, and I'm not aware that that came to pass, and therefore I don't know what the member is referring to.
Supplemental member for Naparima.
Would the Prime Minister not admit that this whole process of the closure of Petrotrin and the founding of the Heritage and other petroleum companies, that it was badly handled and therefore the interests of the taxpayers have not been protected optimally?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll admit no such thing. That is the fulmination of a mischievous member of Parliament.
Member for Naparima, supplemental.
I draw the Prime Minister's attention to the EPA's request that was listed in Newsday 2 days ago, and therefore it is factual.
Question.
Why did they not acknowledge? Why did the Prime Minister does not acknowledge that there's a factual basis for the question I asked on the Estate Police Association?
Member for Naparima, even I have a issue in trying to follow what that question was. Next question, member for Naparima.
Question 4. Would the Prime Minister state the benefits in monetary and other terms, including any securing of gas deals achieved during his visit to Europe and to Houston?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, in the context of the apology I gave early on, I want to repeat in response to this particular question again, that the government went as far as the government was able to, voluntarily, to outline for the population the answer to this question, which was given by the minister responsible in this parliament by way of a statement in the parliament, and that answer exists on the Hansard.
Supplemental member for
The
Naparima.
Prime Minister indicate whether it was really necessary to go to Houston and to Europe, and these things could not have been achieved right here in the head offices of both companies.
Prime Minister.
If you don't have anything sensible to ask me, why don't you keep your seat?
Prime Minister. Prime Minister. I am on my legs. Prime Minister, I really feel that that response should be withdrawn, and you're entitled to give another response that is considered parliamentary.
Madam Speaker, the response is withdrawn. The answer to the question is that the determination of this matter as a part of the responsibility of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is a matter to be determined by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the Cabinet, and it was so done.
Member for Naparima.
Question 5 to the Prime Minister. Given clear shortcomings in the current amnesty for Venezuelans, why is the government not giving thought to a comprehensive refugee policy that is consistent with our international obligations?
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I can state unequivocally that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, observing the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, have been protecting the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago in keeping with all our obligations. And that is our policy. Madam Speaker, the government of Trinidad and Tobago is not prepared to open any refugee camp in Trinidad and Tobago to please anybody except the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And any reference to any shortcoming with respect to other obligations, our primary obligation is to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and we have done so.
Supplemental member for Princess Town.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister. Prime Minister, in this very Parliament, a few months ago, the Honourable Attorney General indicated that there was a policy before the Cabinet with respect to refugees. Can you tell us when that policy will be completed and presented to the people of Trinidad and Tobago?
Madam Speaker, the business of Cabinet will come to the public on completion of any such business. Other than that, Madam Speaker, the business of Cabinet is circumscribed by secrecy.
Fanaprima supplemental.
Is the Prime Minister not mindful and given his obligations to protect the interests of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? The question is, why do we not have a data-driven refugee policy that recognizes the absorptive capacity of our country and is based on international best practices?
Prime Minister.
Speaker, it is precisely because the government of Trinidad and Tobago understands the absorptive capacity of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago why we have conducted ourselves in the way we have. And we will not be encouraged to do otherwise for anybody else's interest on behalf of any lackey.
Supplemental member for Caroni East.
Prime Minister, have you considered any comprehensive policy with respect to the children's education?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the Minister of National Security has addressed that matter earlier on, indicating the government's position with respect to Venezuelan children in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, these are matters that persons in Trinidad and Tobago must understand require a balancing act. And Madam Speaker, the energy coming to me from the other side is in keeping with statements that they have been making, that there are 40,000 and 60,000 and 80,000 Venezuelans there, trying to encourage international bodies to pressure Trinidad and Tobago into converting our country into a refugee camp. You have failed and you will continue to fail.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister satisfied that on the last day of registration during this amnesty period, that on the last day that there is still no policy coming from the government in terms of policy from the cabinet with respect to the current migration problems?
Not allowing that as a supplemental question. Member for Opuchis.
Is the Prime Minister aware that it have more people at the Oval today than for a test match? No.
I'm not allowing that. Member for Naparima.
Since the Prime Minister indicated that he was aware of the absorptive capacity of the country, I want him to quantify the number of students and the number of patients that our health institutions and our education institutions can accommodate.
Madam Speaker, these fulminations about absorptive capacity and data, the registration process is the first line of gathering data, Madam Speaker. And that is one of the things that will come out of this is to prevent my colleague from Naparima and others from spreading misinformation in the hope of damaging the country. We will have facts and figures and details along those lines to this afternoon going forward. You have to gather data to use data. And the yardstick that we are using, yardsticks, Madam Speaker, which will find acceptance by those who understand our circumstance. We are not the first and only country that is dealing with migrants coming to our shores, where the government has to take a decision whether we allow all and sundry to come in or we restrict it and control it. And we will do what has to be done.
Member for Tabakit.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 6 on behalf of the member for Tabakit to the Prime Minister. Given the recent announcement to the government that persons from Africa detained at the Immigration Detention Center are going to be allowed to register to stay in Trinidad and Tobago, could the Prime Minister state whether the government has embarked upon a policy of accepting any or all persons illegally entering Trinidad and Tobago?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the answer to that question is no. Once again, we get no understanding or empathy from our colleagues on the other side, and we have to proceed without them. Our country has found itself in a situation dealing with a migrant crisis in Venezuela, not of our doing. Notwithstanding, they're trying to tell people, we who cause Venezuelans to leave home to come here. Madam Speaker, being forced to deal with this situation, another problem which is similar, have come to the fore that we have been grappling with a handful of Africans who are in our detention center, who we are feeding and securing at great cost to us, who we would like to deport. We are taking the opportunity, because we are handling this Venezuelan situation, to deal with 6 Africans, Madam Speaker. If you listen to them, you figure the whole of Africa is in Trinidad and Tobago, upsetting the people. 6 people, of whom, Madam Speaker, 3 are from Nigeria, one from Ghana, one from the Gambia, and one Senegalese. These are the 6 people. And if, Madam Speaker, none of them, if they do not have criminal associations or labeled as criminals, we will take the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to extend to them what we have extended to the Venezuelans and solve a problem for us and for them, Madam Speaker. Contrary to the information being spread by those who do not have the information or those who do not wish us well, there are 6 Africans, Madam Speaker, in the IDC, the Immigration Detention Center. That is what we're dealing with. And that is what the data says.
Supplemental member for Naparima.
Would the Prime Minister not admit that had we developed a comprehensive refugee policy, that we would not have, as an afterthought, identified these 6 Africans and therefore exposed us in a preliminary way to being perhaps racist?
Madam Speaker, I know that my colleagues on the other side will pass up no opportunity to try to damage the government, but please don't damage our country. Madam Speaker, this has nothing to do with race. It's a practical solution. And if we are being called upon to take action, the action of the government of Trinidad and Tobago is comprehensive insofar as the people are concerned. The only people who can't understand what we're doing are those who will not understand, and I'm sure my colleague will never understand this comprehensive refugee policy, immigration policy. Our immigration policy is governed by the laws we have in place. We have no new policy, and we are not being encouraged to put any policy in place which will give us liabilities that we can't discharge. We are discharging our liabilities now in the context of the laws in our books and our own human condition. And whoever is pulling the strings, Madam Speaker, I don't work for them. I work for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And the laws of Trinidad and Tobago might not be comprehensive enough for you, but it's comprehensive enough to protect the people of Trinidad and Tobago from international interference. And we will brook no international interference in Trinidad and Tobago. We will conduct our affairs in a humane and decent manner, and we can stand scrutiny on the 4 corners of the globe.
Supplemental member for St. Caroline East. Supplemental member for Caroline East. Order, please. Order.
Yes. Prime Minister, have you been able to ascertain whether there are any criminal actions against any of the 6 that you have mentioned who are in the detention center?
I'm not going to allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Napari.
The Prime Minister admit where he heard that the comprehensive refugee policy that we demand or we ask for, whether that is dictated by international pressure and not the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I've said to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, while there's a demand,
I'm going to take this opportunity to warn everybody on both sides that is standing orders. Member for Laventille West, I know you might be distracted, but I'm on my legs. I'm taking this opportunity to warn all members. Some of us might not have been here for a little time, and we might have forgotten. We are guided by standing orders. Unparliamentary language is not going to be tolerated. Shouting across the floor is not going to be tolerated. I assure every member here, if they wish an opportunity to speak, once they catch my eyes and they're within the standing orders, they will get the opportunity to speak. Prime Minister. Tabakit.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 7 to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, well, let me read it out, please. Could the Prime Minister state the government's position on the hiring of illegal immigrants by individuals and local international companies doing business in Trinidad and Tobago?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the government's position is encoded in the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. That is the government's position.
What's your position?
Member for Urupuchi, supplemental.
Thank you very much. Well, to the Prime Minister, as a follow-up question, we have noted the government's policy position that immigrants now with the right to work would not be asked to pay NIS. Would the immigrants who are now entitled to work for 1 year be asked to pay health surcharge?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the government is taking steps to ensure that the laws of Trinidad and Tobago are observed, and where the laws don't have provision, you would have seen the business of the Parliament so stated to make the rectification so that that can be done, Madam Speaker.
Member for Carney East.
Prime Minister, on what basis you made a determination that these immigrants or migrants should not be paying NIS if they are employed, when you're discriminating against those who are employed?
There's one question, and you're allowed 15 seconds. So you've asked it. You've asked it. 15 seconds, Prime Minister.
Why has the Prime Minister differentiated from the migrants from the citizens in not paying NIS?
Very much, Member for Carney East, for choosing the word differentiated as against discriminated. There's a big difference between differentiate and discriminate. It is not a discriminatory action. It's a differentiation, as you quite correctly said. Madam Speaker, the government has provided some element of relief in this way for 1 year to Venezuelans who have come from there under some element of stress. Once you are paying into national insurance service, Madam Speaker, there is an expectation and a requirement that the service provides you with benefits. It is because we do not want to add additional persons making claims for benefits on the NIS, while we have separated and differentiated this body of people, while allowing them to stay in our country, but not providing them with access to make claims on the National Insurance Service. That is not discriminatory action. It is a differentiation between citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and persons who have been allowed to stay in our country under special circumstances under this thing which goes on for 1 year. And if that is not clear, Madam Speaker, I don't know what is.
Supplemental, Member for Carney East.
Answer, Prime Minister. But would that not create an undue advantage or disadvantage to citizens when those employed with businesses have to pay the NIS, the employers have to pay the NIS, but with the migrant population, they're not paying NIS, and therefore the employers not paying NIS. So therefore the businesses now will seek to employ more migrant population because it's cheaper for them than the local population.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, to the extent that that is an overriding consideration, I don't have data, but I don't expect that to be a major consideration in the employment of people, because the business community would have been saying all along in some sectors that they were short of some aspects of the labor force for their particular business. So what it does, on the other hand, is prevent persons from being exploited in an inhumane way if those persons could be threatened with exposure to immigration and therefore had to accept inhumane conditions so as to remain in Trinidad and Tobago. The registration now prevents that from happening, and that is part of the facility that would have been granted to persons who have come to us for help, and that is part of the help that they get. We don't expect this to be a permanent feature. This is a temporary situation. For how long, we do not know. It's a special circumstance, and I think we all can understand that.
Supplemental, Member for Refugees.
No.
Member for Tabakit.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 8. On behalf of the member for Tabakit, could the Prime Minister state whether at the end of the 1 year period being given to Venezuelans to remain in Trinidad and Tobago, what would they be repatriated at the end of 1 year?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, clearly this process is open to review because the registration that is going on right now, we have stated up front that the persons who are beneficiaries of that acknowledgement have to be reviewed, turn up again in 6 months' time for a review. At the end of the year, we'll also review. And depending on what is happening around the world in Venezuela and in Trinidad and Tobago, we will take the decisions then depending on what we are dealing with. And this demand for looking around the corner, Madam Speaker, I want to give the country the assurance that what we have got ourselves in is a situation not of our own making, but we are responding in the best that we can so as to ensure that we offer some assistance while not at the same time damaging the wider interests of Trinidad and Tobago. So in a year's time, we'll be in a position to take another decision of some kind. And Madam Speaker, we will be able to do that without fanfare and without problems.
Supplemental, member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is the Prime Minister and the government given consideration to scenario planning, where you could identify possible scenarios and prepare contingency and plans for each scenario?
Prime
Madam
Minister.
Speaker, I am not familiar with the scenario, and therefore I can't respond to it.
Member for Princess Sound.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister. Prime Minister, after the registration process is completed today, could the Honourable Prime Minister indicate what mechanisms will be utilised in order to identify those who have not registered and to be repatriated to Venezuela?
Out of order. Honourable members, the time for Prime Ministerial questions is now spent.